And there's some research that has come out that has shown that child welfare investigators are much more likely to substantiate a claim of child abuse or neglect if there is a positive drug test or if there's domestic violence at play, even when all the other case facts remain exactly the same. And so if there is a positive drug screen, and we know, right, that can increase the likelihood of a finding, even though there isn't necessarily, a
Right.
danger to those kids. How can advocates really advocate for survivors in those kinds of situations?
I think as advocates, it's really important for us to learn to talk about child safety and what is child safety. What really objectively is a risk to the child, and a lot of the decision making is very subjective. And that's what makes it really tough as an advocate, because you never really know what you're going to get sometimes, depending on the caseworker, the investigator, the area that you're in, the overall philosophy of that area. So it changes. I've worked around a little bit, so I kind of felt that a lot. But I think being able to really talk about child safety and what that looks like, and understanding how that's defined through eyes as well. Where are they working from? And then what does it really look like? We really talk about child safety from the standpoint of where were the children when this was going on? One, like if we're going to look at the incident, because a lot of times that's where they're focused at, is this is where, this has happened and this is where the kids were when it happened. But looking at the parental capacity, the functioning of the parent, the functioning of the child, the protective capacity of the parent. And that's where I think a lot of subjective information can come in too. I've seen cases where they didn't see the parent as protective, but the parent called the police and the perpetrator was arrested, and they may have even attempted to file an injunction, or maybe they were denied, but they went down and tried to file an injunction. That's protective capacity. They'll tend to focus on, well, the perpetrator got out of jail and she had contact with him, or he went back home. Maybe he did, but let's look at how the system worked in keeping him not going home. So being able to really look at how the system could support the survivor better from a safety perspective, making sure that the aspects of the system that are in place to protect and hold perpetrators accountable are actually occurring as best as we can as advocates. Sometimes that's a case by case thing. If you have, you have certain responses in the community that work well and some that maybe don't work as well, so you spend time on that. But being able to have that good conversation with the understanding of the investigation or case management side of what path they're taking and why they're taking that path, and what's available to them. And, they are caught in deadlines and needing to have certain information by certain amounts of time with the case progression. So recognizing that too is helpful. But I think the child safety and the child functioning and protective capacities of the parent is a really good focus for advocates to teach themselves to recognize, do some reading on it. There's definitely trainings out in regards to those things. And I think being able to really have a good conversation around those things with investigators and even law enforcement or other systems, therapists that they're working with, anybody that you're advocating with, those are three things that are really important to talk about, because they speak to me the core of the parent. So maybe there's some other issues that we have to deal with, but at the core, have they been protective? Have they made sure their kids were safe and the best that they could under the circumstances that they had? Then let's make their circumstances better. Let's give them better tools. Let's give them a place that they can safely feel like they can do these things. And then let's see how they do. Instead of taking away, try to give a little bit more. But I think that you're right as far as that, the studies, what the studies are suggesting, I can see that. So I think it's important to be able to really say, okay, we may have a substance abuse issue, but let's really look at the safety of the child, the functioning of the child, and the protective capacity of the parent. And let's try to make decisions from that aspect of what they have done instead of what they've not done or what we don't think they've done. That's where the subjectiveness comes in.
Yes. And it's, it's so helpful to hear it just unpacked in this way. Because I think that when an advocate is in a room full of people trying to advocate and they're the only one who really has that DV perspective, it's so easy to feel overwhelmed or feel like, I'm trying to raise these things and everyone's looking at me like I'm from Mars, right? So to have it really unpacked in these different kind of anchoring pieces is so helpful for advocates who may feel like they're swimming upstream a lot of the time.
Yeah, I agree. I do too. They're not alone. It does feel like that.